Fear causes you to waste time. You waste time because you're scared. You just do. I'm Kenesha Hart. I am a speaker, a podcaster. I speak on how to forge through your fear. I also podcast. Coach Up Podcast is the podcast where I get to talk to 6 and 7 figure coaches about how they build their business to that level. But I like to come on here and talk about how you forge through fear. And I just want to talk about today that you waste time because you're scared. Again, all of this applies to me as well, but let's get into it. Let's dig into it. So how are you wasting time because you're scared? Let me explain. Fear causes you not to act. Fear causes us not to act. Action and inaction both cost time. What is one thing that never stops moving forward, never changes course, never retracts? It is time. And so regardless of what we do or don't do, time will continue to move on. So fear typically causes us to not act, causes us to be paralyzed in inaction, causes us not to move forward. So therefore, if we're not moving forward with time that is moving forward, we are wasting time because we are scared. And so we need to talk about how we forge through the fear so you can reclaim your time, take your time back. The years of your life that you've wasted, the weeks of your life that you've wasted, the days of your life this week that you wasted out of fear. And so when you don't do something because you are afraid for whatever reason, know that you are saying to the clock, I'm fine that right now I am not utilizing the time that I have been given to the best of my ability. And I know that 2 days from now, 2 hours from now, 2 weeks from now, 2 years from now, I am okay with the fact that I may not be where I want to be because of the time that I am wasting right now by choosing to stand in fear instead of forge through it. Okay, and so I want to put that in perspective. This week, in the last 5 days, I bet you can, if you take a moment, you can imagine, you can think about something that you needed to get done this week, right? So it was this past week, something you needed to get done that you put off, because we know one of the manifestations of fear is procrastination, right? It's just not doing something. We're procrastinating, we're putting it off. And so I want you to think about that thing this week that you needed to get done, that you were supposed to get done. And because of some kind of fear, if you want to use another word that helps you relate a little bit better, hesitation, concern, doubt, uncertainty, all of these root of them are fear. But we're going to use the language so that when you hear the word fear, you don't brush it off and say, I'm not afraid. I was just hesitant. That stems from fear. Or I'm not afraid. I just didn't feel like doing it. There's a reason you didn't feel like doing it. And often it's based on some kind of fear. So you're afraid to do it. There was something that came up when things are a priority. Yep, they're distractions. But when things are a priority, you make those things happen, right? And that stems sometimes, again, not always, out of some fear of if you don't do X, Y will occur. So I'm going to use all of the terminology so that you know, ultimately on the foundation, you're dealing with fear for why you're not doing the thing or the things that you know you need to be doing or you want to be doing. The things that you actually want to be doing, the things you want to see in your life, you're still not doing them. From a foundation of fear, that's the root problem. Just need to then figure out what the fear is of. But I'll use the terminology that allows you to recognize how you're actually feeling. So like I said, hesitancy, not feeling like it, concern, all of those. So I'll go back to the example. I want you to think about something this past week that happened where you knew beginning of the week, middle of the week, you needed to get something done. And yet you did not. You needed to have that conversation with your child and you pushed it off 4 days. And the problem just continued to manifest, and the unresolved feelings just continued to manifest. And the situation did not get better, may have even gotten worse, because you put off having that conversation that you know you needed to have with your child, or with your husband, or with your wife, or with your significant other, or maybe even with your boss. Whatever that conversation was that you needed to have this week. Maybe a simple phone call, quick conversation, maybe been something pretty deep. But you put it off. Why? Because you were afraid of what their reaction may be. You were afraid of how you might react to their reaction. You were afraid of how you might approach it, that it would maybe damage the relationship more. You were afraid that they wouldn't respond in the way that you wanted them to respond. There was a fear. So you pushed it off. So you wasted time. You wasted time repairing the relationship when the relationship then could have been on the road to recovery for better, sooner, or it could have been resolved. You wasted time because you submitted and subjected yourself and maybe the other person to anxiety longer than you needed to, worry longer than you needed to, discomfort longer than you needed to. It was a waste of time. If something happened on Tuesday and you know you should have had the conversation Tuesday evening or Wednesday, and you waited until Thursday or Friday to have the conversation, you're wasting time because you're afraid. This comes to play. Business is another great example where you know that in order for you to make your monthly goal, it's the beginning of the month, you got 30 days. In order for you to make that monthly goal, you need to be doing certain activity every day in order to reach your goal. But because you're afraid people will not want what you have to offer, they may say no to you. You're afraid of rejection, or you're afraid that what you are selling is not as valuable as what you've priced it for. So you're dealing with imposter syndrome, or not trusting yourself, fear and faith of yourself. Wasting time, because now you put off those calls that you needed to make on the first day, and on the second day, and on the third day. Or maybe you made a few, but you know you need to make 20 in order to even work the numbers to get to your monthly goal at the end of the month. And goodness forbid you have employees where you got to pay, right? At the end of the month based on the activity that you're doing. So instead of the 20 calls you were supposed to make the first day, you just make 5. You did something, but you were still scared, really, of getting rejected. So you felt good about doing something. So then you did a little something, but not what you were really supposed to be committed to doing. So you feel like, I'm not afraid. No, you are, because our fear, when we forge through it, allows us to do the complete commitment that we have said we were going to do. We keep our word to ourselves and to others. Anything less than that, it's not full commitment. It's still operating in a place of fear. Fear, when we forge through fear, we go all out. It's an all out, unrestrained, completely engaged effort. Fearlessness, as some people would like to call it. I don't know that I necessarily may or may not use that word as that case, because there still may be, you're forging through the fear. I don't say that it's necessarily gone. I believe that it can be gone 110% in the name of Jesus. Sometimes we're forging through it. We're doing it in spite of the fear. And so it's not fearlessness, it's doing it in spite of. But doing it in spite of, we have to do the whole thing, not just make 5 calls out of the 20 that we're supposed to and feel like we did a good job. That's progress, but it's not forging through. So you make the 5 calls instead of the 20 today, and then the next day you make 6 calls, and then the next day you make 4 calls, and then the next day you make 7 calls. We're still well below the 80 calls that you should be at if you're doing 20 calls, if your goal is 20 calls per day, and we're at day 4, and you've not even capped 25 at this point. That is then going to delay that end of the month goal that has to happen, because the work that was laid out to do to get you to that goal has been pushed back. You're not doing the effort and the activity that's going to get you to that goal. And so now you've wasted time. So this is what fear does. It causes you to waste time. Let me give you another 2 examples, right? One, I'll give you a personal example. Starting this speaking assignment, foraging through fear. This is an assignment that I have been given by the Lord Jesus Christ to speak about how to forage through fear. I thank the Lord I have walked through fear, as again, every single one of you have, if not every day, many days of your life. But this is our assignment, to talk about it so that we can connect about how you forge through it. And I pray that the Lord will give me something to say to you that will help you start to forge through your fear as well. And that becomes your lifeline. That becomes your life stance, that you forge through fear. It comes, we forge through it. It attacks, we forge through it. Can we eradicate it? Not from it coming, typically. Maybe can get to that point. But at this point, when it comes, and it will attack, we know how to forge through it. So this assignment that God gave me, I had fear about getting on YouTube to talk about it. And I'm going to tell you my fears. So 1, will anybody pay attention? I don't know. 2, I had a fear of, I think this is just interesting even as I talk about it, my thumbnails are not going to be good enough. It's not even going to attract anybody's attention. Okay, they'll get better, but that should not have caused me not to start, right? Like I had this spoken into my life by the Lord Jesus Christ in January, and I'm just now starting. It is March. That is crazy. That is delayed obedience, which is disobedience. I am here now. However, what I did was I allowed fear of, I don't know that I know how to do thumbnails well. And I want to wait until I can either pay somebody to do the thumbnails or I get good at them before I start. That's fear. I also said, I don't know if I can go live on YouTube. I don't have the subscribers or the watched hours that YouTube requires in order for you to go live. I just didn't want to do the homework into the platform that I already have and pay for that allows me to go live on YouTube, regardless of the number of subscribers I have or the number of hours. That was just fear. I just needed to do a little research to know that I already had the tool. God had already given me the tool that I needed in order to be able to do this. But I allowed fear that I didn't have enough followers to do this, to stop me from getting started. Also, I didn't know if I really knew what I was going to be talking about. Lord, I know you're giving this to me, so I know you'll equip me. But then I get in my flesh and think, Kanisha, do you really have something to offer, or do you even know how to put it together? That's all fear. If this is horrible, it'll get better, right? But I got to start. But I wasted 2 months, almost 60 days, maybe a little less, before I started, which was a waste of time, which means instead of starting in January, I'm not starting in March, which means in order for the growth to come, now trust and believe the Lord can redeem and restore and do suddenly. If he says, I need to grow this steadily instead of him doing the suddenly, then I belabored time to get started, just out of fear. I wasted time. So fear caused me to waste time. I'm gonna give you another example. Think about your finances. And if you're in a situation where financially you are not as comfortable and secure as you'd like to be, you may be living paycheck to paycheck, or you may be living paycheck to almost paycheck and not quite making it to the next paycheck. That is a reality for some. And you're afraid of your finances. You're afraid of what will happen if there's, God forbid, an accident. God forbid there's an emergency that causes you to have to financially support it. You're afraid. And you don't know how you are making it, and you don't know how you're going to make it. So you have a fear around your finances. But have you looked at your finances? Or are you scared to actually take a true, solid look at what money is coming in, what money you are sending out, what where is the money being spent? If you haven't looked at your finances and you're struggling, you have a fear. And it's either of we say fear of finances, but it's either a fear of your habits or yourself. There may be some other fears in there, but I'm going to start with those too. Because if you have a spending problem or a income problem, you have control over what you spend. You may or may not have control over what you make, but you have control over what you spend. So are you just scared of looking at the choices that you've made? Or are you scared of looking at yourself to say, I am making these choices. What is it in me that needs to change that's not serving me well? We're often afraid to have those conversations with ourselves. Very afraid. And we definitely don't want anybody else to have them, right? With us, them tell us about ourselves. No, but those are two things that are those are two examples that when you don't face the fear, when you walk in the fear, you're wasting time. Because from a financial standpoint, nothing gets better until something changes. So the struggle financially will continue until you change something, but you can't know what to change until you actually face the finances. So until you have the courage to look at your finances, to put every single thing down on paper that you are spending over the course of 60 days and say, this is what everything that I have spent in the last 60 days, and say, oh my goodness, I have spent $300 on eating out, and I've spent another $250 on getting my nails done, and I've spent another $150 on fishing license to go fishing and bait and tackle. I've done all of that. And these are things that are causing me not to be able to pay the light bill on time, or to have the medical insurance that I need to have, or to be able to repair the tires on the vehicle that carry me around because I don't have the finances to get them replaced because I'm spending an extra $200 on eating out and nails. But if we don't face it, can't fix it. And then that's pushing the time along that you continue to remain in that situation. You're wasting that time instead of facing the fear, addressing it, and then making changes. So it's a time waster. Fear is a time waster. So now we need to fix how not to be afraid, in this situation so that we can take back our time. So that you can take back the years, you can take back the days, you can take back the months that you've wasted, that I've wasted, being afraid of something. This is mine right now. I am on here, I am live, I am talking about how you forge through fear. I have started the forward progress. I am not allowing fear anymore I am not wasting time because I'm afraid of what my response is going to be on YouTube. Or Twitter. I'm on Twitter as well. I'm not afraid anymore. Or even if I am, nervous is one of those other words for afraid. I'm forging through it. That's why we're talking right now. So now that I want you to do a couple of things. So in the first video, I talked about the very first thing I want you to do is I want you to decide what is the number one fear that you're going to tackle. Not number one as in this is the biggest fear, but pick out of the things that you have fear around and decide the one that you're going to tackle. Because we only are going to start with one. Cannot tackle all this at once. All of them didn't come at once. Let's tackle them one by one. Learn to forge through them. I want to say eradicate because it can happen. Sometimes it happens that way. Sometimes we forge through it. So figure out the one of the fears that you're going to work to forge through, because that will build the confidence to help forge through other fears faster, and in some cases, eradicate. The first video talked about decide the one fear in your life that you're going to address. Today, what I want you to do is, so if you haven't done that, do that first. Decide the one fear. The one fear. It may be, right now you may have nervousness, anxiety, again, all code words for fear, around your job, around your finances, around your kids' school, around their education process, what they're learning, what they're not, how they're doing around your relationship, around your business, around your career, any of them. You might have in all areas, but pick one that you're going to work on forging through. So if you haven't done that, do that now or when you get done. Second step is I want you to identify why you feel that fear. And I'll share. I'll tell you mine. Mine is I want what the Lord has told me to do and what I'm doing to be successful. But I have a microwave mentality. I want it to be successful quickly. And if I don't see quick success, then I think it's not working. And so therefore, I then am operating, unfortunately, through fear, forging through this fear. But the fear, why the fear is there, is because I'm afraid that it won't work. For example, I don't know, I would imagine if I had anybody watching live, like on the platform that I use to go live on YouTube, it shows me the number of people watching. There's 0 right now. I have faith and believe God that's going to change. But right now, it says 0. So I think, my fear is that nobody will listen and this will go nowhere. But I got to do it anyway. Because if I don't do it, if I continue to operate in that fear and do nothing, 6 months from now, nobody will still have heard anything that I did or said. I won't have any material to share with you. I will not have been on my assignment to talk about how to forge through fear. And then I'm in the same place 6 months from now that I am today. So why not just start now? So that's what I want you to think about. Just start now. But first, I want you to identify why. Why are you feeling the fear that you're feeling? And then we'll work on next steps. But know that it's time to reclaim your time. It's time for you to stop wasting your time because of fear and have that time restored to you because you are learning and committing to forge through the fear. Let's forge through it, y'all. Let's go.